Hello, everyone. This last week of 2020, as we round out the craziest year on record, I'm pretty sure. Wow, a lot going on in the constellations and the heavens, astrologically speaking, with the Great Conjunction. But I mean, aside from what's already transpired on the planet and what's in the stars, it feels like there's just a lot to be explored in the inner terrains of one's soul. A lot of stuff to up level with, and to ride kind of the current of the cosmos with, if you will, to a new consciousness. So I love talking about all that kind of depth psychology and going into frontiers of healing the mind body. But today we're going to talk with Kellee Marlow. She has quite an extensive career in helping people to innovate new technologies, new ways of thinking. She is what she calls an impact entrepreneur. So she loves business strategy. She also does something called empowerment acceleration. She's a motivational speaker. So she has a lot to share with us about practical purpose discovery, how a woman discovers her purpose, and how to kind of know if you found your thing. And personally speaking, I feel like that just evolves and evolves and evolves, because you could go down lots of different directions in your life of what interests you, what you're passionate about. But usually there's just like this undercurrent of this kind of one thing that you just love to do. And many other things feed into that. So we're going to talk about that. She is the creator of Spark. And so her website is spark-conversations.com. All right, Kellee, thanks for joining us today. I'm so excited to talk to you about your area of expertise. And as my listeners know, because I ask every single person I interview, you usually have a story that got you to where you are. And so what can you share with us about your background that brought you into this space of what you're doing now?
Okay, so I started with the traditional path of corporate jobs, getting going from college to my first job in the company. And then from there, I went from job to job. But what was interesting was I would get bored and want to do something completely different. So I never had the same job. So I went from being an analyst into marketing, into public relations, into business development, and into becoming an entrepreneur. And I never did it in the same industry either. So it felt like I was constantly starting over again every time I did this. But luckily, I did this young, so I could get away with jumping from role to role and industry to industry. But over time, what happened was it stopped working for me, even as an entrepreneur, because it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. And I didn't realize that. And what happened was I would keep hitting walls every time I tried to make something happen. And I couldn't figure out why that was happening to me. And the message I was getting was, you need to focus on being of service. And I didn't know what that meant, because that could be
service, you said?
Of service.
Of service.
And I didn't know what that meant, because it could be a number of things. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, and so on. But that was when it was perfectly clear that I had to figure that out on my own. And that was where it was a long and hard journey for me to go through that process, because I was kind of put in kind of like a middle of the desert, it felt like, where it was just like, okay, figure it out. And it took me a while, but that's how I got to where I am today.
So yeah, that's interesting. I talked to quite a few women who were in the corporate space, and they just felt a pull to go, and it didn't make sense. It wasn't logic based, right? It was just this drive or this pull to do something else. And it takes a lot of courage to step away from, especially if you have a comfortable income and things are kind of more predictable, right? Instead of that more entrepreneurial path.
Even though my path wasn't predictable, at least I knew what my next step may look like, and that I would shoot for it and see what happens. In this case, it was kind of like I was shooting for it, and I would hit a wall. I would shoot over here, hit a wall. I shoot over there and hit a wall. And it became clear to me that it wasn't what I was doing, like the way I did it before, wasn't working anymore. And I think that's when you realize that you have to be doing something different. Like whatever you're doing now is not working. You have to be doing something completely different.
Yeah. So you call yourself an impact entrepreneur. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
So now I focus mainly on social impact, or impact in sense of empowerment, tying to empowerment. So I'm involved in organizations that focus on empowerment. I am focused on content that's tied to empowerment, and I'm working with people who are trying to look at things differently in a way that's going to help empower them to move forward. So that's how I would describe impact entrepreneur. I don't want to completely say it's social in the sense that now social impact can mean something different, like environmental, but it's more about that personal impact that I'm focused on, but it may be at an organizational level as well.
Right. So you built your career by embracing this idea of disruption. And I love that, because most people who exact change have to disrupt something, some kind of established way of doing things. Are you familiar with, oh my goodness, now I'm going to forget his name. But he talked about innovative disruption. He just recently passed away. It'll come to me later, but it just reminded me when I was kind of reading through your background, when you talk about the disruption and innovation of his work, and it'll come to me. I know it will, but do you know what I'm talking about?
There's so many.
Yeah, he's kind of the father of it, though. Okay. And I think he was at Harvard, but I'll look it up while we're talking. So with that disruption, when you say you built your career by embracing disruption, do you want to speak to our listeners a little bit about what that means to you and how that's gone about?
Yeah, so I would say, like, right now in this pandemic, a lot of people are looking at it with a crisis mindset, and those who are looking at it with an opportunity mindset are the ones who are going to succeed. And that's what embracing disruption is about. Is now we're so incredibly disrupted, and it's all about your mindset and how you're looking at this. So if you're looking at it with the sense of, where can I be of service? Where can I make a difference? You'll find it. Now, if you're looking at it with a crisis mindset, you'll find crisis. So whatever you're looking for, you'll find. So it's really important how you look at what you're looking for. What is it that you're looking for? Are you looking to make a difference? Are you looking at, how to be self-protective during this time? So I find that most people are being self-protective and pulling back rather than moving in the other direction, which is, where can I make a difference and how can I reach out? And that's where they're going to see opportunity when they do that.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like looking at the world through a set of lens of how can I derive something different that has never been done before. I looked him up. It's Clayton M. Christensen, and he is considered, he's an American scholar that worked at Harvard Business, taught at Harvard Business. And it says this is Wikipedia. He has been called the most influential business idea of the 21st century. His collaborators that worked with him on that in the mid-90s. And it's funny because in my business, we had a whole presentation, somebody come and talk about, that whole idea of, getting out of the box and thinking in ways that are nonconformist ways of thinking and doing business. And if you look at the history of people, like Steve Jobs and all these people who did things that they're a different way, they were often scorned and shamed and, how can you break this tradition, or how can you not follow this pattern? It's proven, it works, or whatever. How have you kind of galvanized yourself against those, I guess, naysayers, or I call them dream killers, but yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I don't think I let it affect me as much now than I did maybe when I was younger and I wanted to prove myself. And for me now, it's about proving myself to myself more than it is about proving myself to other people. So from that standpoint, I'll ask myself, are you going to feel good about this at the end of the day? Or, if you don't really push yourself, you can be where you want to be. And are you going to be then just surrounded by excuses that you're going to regret? So those are like the measuring sticks now that I have for myself versus before. I think I was probably more concerned about what other people thought. Yeah. But I've been fortunate where I've been able to get to the point where I can let that go, because it's not always easy.
No, I think 99.9% of the population struggles with that. We're so relational and we're so tribal that it's hard to disconnect from the opinions of others and just be you. That's one of the reasons I started this whole podcast to help people with that. And it's good that you have that mastered. Wow. You're one of the first people I've ever met.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I still ask for feedback, but I think I ask for quality feedback. Right now, it's like
you could just give that to yourself. Like you're doing it for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that. It's more, I do see feedback as, as gratitude, that someone's given me something that's valuable. But I am also more particular in terms of, I want to hear from people that I respect, right? That are going to be judging or giving me clarity that's important rather than kind of like, oh, I don't like this because, it's not something I would do, right? Yeah. If someone's like, oh, if you tweak this, it would be even better, then I'd be like, oh yeah, I haven't thought of that. Maybe I should give that a try. Just ideas that the way people are giving me feedback is probably the most important, that I feel like it's coming from a place where they're being creative and they're trying to, help me take it to the next level, right? And so I think you have to be particular about your feedback and where you're getting it from.
Consider the source. You don't take financial advice from someone who's poor and in debt.
Exactly. So I'm very particular, but if I'm going to listen to feedback, I take it seriously.
So let's dive into how a woman discovers her purpose. What kind of practical ways have you found that really, so I know you've worked with a lot of different people and you're all about women in leadership, you're a strategist, you're a business strategist. So what have you found is really helpful for a woman if she comes to you and she said, hey, Kellee, I just want to know what my purpose is. I want to know what I'm supposed to do.
So I do want to preface it in saying that purpose is something that's so important as we age, that studies have shown that it increases our well-being when we have a purpose. And it's something that's important both physically and psychologically, and it's been proven. So therefore, you always should focus on having a purpose, especially over time as you get older, because what happens is people retire and they're like, they don't really have a purpose. And it's just as important then as it is now. So from that standpoint, I think it's a priority to really focus on giving meaning to what you're doing. And that's what really purpose is about, is what is going to give you that sense of meaning to your life and that significance. And that's how I would look at it, is whether you feel like you're doing something that means something that you hold as a larger focus for yourself.
Yeah, just to contribute to your own own sense of meaning. And purpose is really not necessarily about us, at least what I've come to find when I've worked with people. It's more about how you contribute to others. It's like your gift of how you contribute to humanity. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So I think the purpose is larger than yourself. So it can't be just about yourself.
Right.
And in that way, it's about being of service. Right. But it's also, it's intertwined, because it's about balance of the fact that you're doing something of service that's bigger than you. And then it's also about you feeling fulfilled by it. So I would say the two is intertwined, and it has to work for both you and for what you're contributing to.
Yeah. Because if you're just contributing and you're not feeling lit up by it, then you're not really contributing. Because people can sense that if you're not passionate about it. And I think that's why there is just this whole transition happening right now of people who kind of wake up and go, well, I don't really love what I'm doing. I make good money, but I don't love it.
Exactly. And I think this is a perfect time where people had excuses before because they're going at a faster pace. They were too busy to think about all of these things about their life that they may like or not like. But now that they're still, it's actually a great time for you to think about this and to ask yourself if this is really what I want to be doing.
Okay. Well, along those lines, how would you lead a woman to discover her purpose?
So I would say Okay, first of all, I want to say technology has made it possible for people to be anything they want that they couldn't have done before. So when you see all the young people who are becoming influencers on YouTube or on social media platforms, they just kind of went on there and created it themselves, right? So you can take technology and you can kind of create whatever it is that you want to create rather than say, oh, I have to move up the ladder somewhere. So that's just something that I just want people to think about, because this has never happened before. It's the fact that you are creating this podcast that's reaching quite a few people. I'm creating podcasts reaching quite a few people. I think in a traditional industry that wouldn't have happened. So there's a lot that's possible. So I just want people to have that open mind that it isn't any one thing. You may have to create it yourself. And it's not about like finding it, and going.
If it doesn't exist and you wish it did exist, then you create it. It's like me writing this book I'm writing right now. It's the book I wish I could read. I wish it was the book that was already out there on the shelf that I could pick up. It's like a hole in the marketplace or a piece of the puzzle that's missing that, like, if it's not there, create it. Easier said than done.
Yes, exactly. And you have to go through this journey of getting there. And that's what's going to happen, right? It's like you are going through a series of steps where it's going to lead you in different directions, and you have to decide what's going to light you up and what's important to you. I would say, you want to start at what lights you up every day. What do you care about? And what are you good at? Because the intersection of the two is what's going to allow you to make that difference that you want to see. And that's not an easy question for everyone to answer. So a lot of times you'll have to, let's say, create a vision board and put images of everything that makes you happy and words, and just throw it all in there and just see what it would look like. Like, what would you be doing on this vision board, right? What would you be saying? What would you be doing? Just throw all that on this board if you're a visual person. Otherwise, you could start journaling. You can write your own narrative. What does that narrative look like in terms of your strength, your weaknesses? What would really bother you? What do you like? And just really write about what's in your heart, and even write about the obstacles that may actually become something that you help others with. So write everything down, because then it just helps you to get more clarity. It solidifies like all the thoughts that you're having. That's going to then kind of become more tangible as you work through them.
Yeah, just bringing it more maybe from the ethereal plane to the physical plane. I love the art of capturing. I personally love to write. Some people don't. I've kept a journal my whole life. I find some people that I work with have a resistance to writing, either because someone told them they weren't a good writer, or it's just not, they're just not that tactical of a person where they would love to sit down and write. But even those people, I encourage them, because they can tap into their subconscious when they do that free flow. Things will come, things will show up. And so I love that. What other kinds of practices would you encourage for that kind of to unearth, hey, what's my purpose? How would that emerge for someone?
I think you can also try activities that bring you joy, whether that's volunteering, whether that is cooking, just trying the things that make you happy. Because the happier you are, I think the easier the process will be in terms of getting there. Because let's say you love cooking, but you're not quite sure where to take it. But the more you explore different avenues of where it can go, the more likely you're going to come up with an option that's tied to your purpose that you may not have thought of, right? But it's just like trying things out. But you have to put yourself out there, because if you don't, you're not going to see the possibilities. You're not going to see the opportunities. You can't be like sitting at your desk every day and saying, oh, what should I think about? What should I do, but not actually doing it. So I would say you have to put yourself out there, and the opportunities then will come to you in terms of what that may look like, and being open to exploring and going on that journey of just seeing all the possibilities.
Great. So is there anything else that you would like to leave us with as we kind of wrap up in terms of what you found to be perhaps maybe the most helpful for your own person? I know you said there was a season where you had some uncertainty and then you kind of, forged ahead and created a certain kind of mindset for yourself. I feel like everything is mindset. So definitely being in that zone of joy will move you into your zone of genius. But what if somebody is just not naturally built that way? What if maybe they've had some trauma, maybe they are walking through something extremely painful in their life, whether it's past, present, or whatever. Maybe they tend to be a little bit more on the negative side, or things just aren't flowing for them. What would you say to a woman that maybe is in that space where she just in her heart, she feels like there's something, but she just can't quite bridge maybe the mindset or the motivation to actualize?
Yeah, so I've been there. It's hard. It's because you just don't know where to go. You don't know what to do, who to talk to. I think the best, what I realized is that everyone has a modality that works for her, and you have to ask yourself what that looks like. So for me, I'm a very curious person. I just like to ask questions, and I like to, find opportunities to do that. So it's just been a lot. The more I spend time doing that, that is what gets me out of my shell and kind of like think about the possibilities. So you have to ask yourself, like, is it being in nature? Is it, where is the place where it's most likely to bring that out of you, and what do you really respond to in terms of opening up and allowing yourself to see the possibilities. And that's the place where you want to visit the most, because you can't be inside thinking about this all the time. You have to be out somewhere doing something that's just who you are, and that's more likely to open you to what's possible.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time today. And can you let people know where to find you?
Oh, I do have one last thing I want to add, which is I think a lot of people, when they're going through pain, what they don't realize is that that's a gift too. And that may become the gift that they give to somebody else, is how to get through that pain. For example, there are people who have experienced poverty, and now their purpose is to lift other people out of poverty, for example, or something's happened to somebody they care about, and now their purpose is to not let that happen to other people. So their experiences of pain or obstacle that can actually bridge you to your purpose. And it's not always obvious in that moment, but later on, that may become more clear as to why you went through that experience, and that may then become your purpose if you really care about not for it to not be the experience that other people have. Right.
Yeah, I love the phrase, your mess is your message. And no kind of creation can happen without a mess. I mean, there's just no way. This is just the natural pattern of things that the pendulum has to shift, and we have to kind of go into the mire or the muck or the mess to examine our ego, to examine our mindset and our past trauma and experiences, so that we can get out of the mess. And yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, it's usually our life experiences that drive us to our purpose. It's not necessarily what we go to college to learn, or what job we get, or whatever it could be. But oftentimes it's just, I've walked through this stuff, and so now I get to have the lived experience and become a quote unquote expert in this domain because I lived it versus just read about it.
Yes, and that's what happens usually, right? Yeah. It's when you live through something and you realize that this is something that you want to change in the world. And you want this experience to be different for others. And I think it's very powerful when that happens. So I just want to give you a quick story about a woman I met who I'm helping. And she was in prison for killing someone when she was young. Now she's building this empowerment program for other women who were in a position of like not having support and not having guidance, just not having, that foundation that led her to do what she did. And pay that price. So she wants to now turn around and, help those who are like at that cusp or maybe doing something they shouldn't, they're going to regret. Right. So that's how powerful it can be, is that you may take that and say, you know what, I can change this, not only for myself, but for others. And when you empower others, you also empower yourself.
Right. It's beautiful. I would also like to add to this that there's something I teach in my Feminine Boss School called, I teach it in the Stand Speak Shine School too, because it's like a former Buddhist monk who was a teacher for me for many years and still is, Nithya Shanti. He taught me this or led me to this Venn diagram called How to Find Your Purpose. And it's these 4 circles. I don't know if you've seen it, but these 4 circles and they all intersect. So the top circle is what you love doing. And then it's what you love doing. This is what the 4 circles say: what you love doing, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. And where they intersect right in the middle, all 4 of them, that's your true purpose. That's your, like your calling in life. So there's a lot of things like, for instance, a profession is like you're good at it and you get paid for it. That's a profession. A vocation or a job is what the world needs and what you get paid for. And so it's like what you love and what the world needs, that might just be like a mission. And what you're good at and what you love doing is a passion. But when you put them all together, what you love doing, what you're good at, what you get paid for, and what the world needs, that is sort of that sweet spot in the middle of your purpose. And that's something that he led me to, that I coach others on. And I love it because it's so visual. So I just want to tell everyone to go Google purpose Venn diagram, and you can see the visual on that.
Yeah, and I do want to qualify that there are a lot of people who don't believe they should be paid to live their purpose, and it's just not true.
Yeah, I did a whole episode on that, that it's okay to get paid for what your natural gifts are. It's okay to build wealth because the more you have, the more you can give. But if you're not going to get paid for it, then it's just a passion, right? Because you love it and you're good at it. That's not the same as a true thing in the middle. But also, I hate the and maybe this is where you're going with this, but I hate the conversation, or I get triggered by the conversation that you have to make money. You have to make money at your purpose, because you don't. You probably do it for free, but you might as well get paid for it if you can. It's a nice bonus.
Yeah, I think that's tricky, right? Because you don't want to feel like you're driven by money, which I completely understand. You want to feel like you're driven by purpose. So I can understand where the money part may feel kind of, icky or weird. But I think if people are going to offer to you, why not? Right? There's no reason to say no. And then there's no reason to start off thinking that I shouldn't be paid to live my purpose either.
Sure.
There's a way I'm sure it can work where you don't feel icky, or, there's a right balance for that as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, good point. And I think that bottom part where it's like what you can be paid for. So you don't have to accept money for it, but there would be an opportunity for you to be paid for it if you were innovative enough, which is kind of how we started this discussion, is the whole beauty and power of being innovative and seeing a need out there, like what the world needs, and filling it, finding a way with your own genius to fill that need.
I agree.
Yay. Well, Kellee, how can our listeners find you and your work?
My work is on www.spark, SPARK-conversation, CONVERSATIONS.com. And they can find a lot of science-backed research on mindset shifts and what makes a huge difference when looking at purpose, and other great tools.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time today, Kellee.
Thank you.
So, do what lights you up every single day. Find things to do that light you up. Try to do things that actually bring you happiness, not your shoulds and your whole list of responsibilities. Those are obviously part of life, but you need to find what you love and what lights you up and gives you that divine spark. By the way, I just saw this movie called Soul on Disney Plus. If any of you get a chance to see that, oh my gosh, it totally feeds into this discussion that we had with Kellee. And you can check out that Venn diagram. I think it's called the purpose diagram. Just kind of Google that and see that sweet spot in the middle of like, the world needs it, you love it, you get paid for it, you're good at it. And right in the middle of that is your purpose. So pay attention to that spark, the spark that makes me feel more in love with my life. Have a great rest of 2020, and we'll talk to you next year on Women Seeking Wholeness.